This is an opportunity for this country, for the so-called Democrats, for the so-called progressives of this country to show and prove and begin a process of holding this rich, nasty, dirty man accountable in front of God, country, and the world. It is an opportunity. This man has committed every single type of crime. He has committed political crimes, white-collar crimes, and war crimes. It is a perfect opportunity to say, you know what? Him, all of his cronies, every one of the grifters, we're going to get. And let me tell you something. Democrats, progressives, liberals, whatever you call yourself, this is what your base and so many other people who effed around and found out, that's what they're waiting on now. That's what the world is waiting on now.
Greetings, Scouts. Welcome to the Local Lookout with Rodney and Bobby. Looking forward to having a great session this evening. Rodney, how you doing?
Bobby, I'm doing good, man. You know, I'm out here in these streets, brother. The sweets in the streets, as we say on the Black Man's Round Table, out here flipping tables like Jesus. You know, that's one of our taglines for this year, and I'm gonna use it as much as I can. But other than that, Bobby, I'm doing pretty good, brother. I want to take this opportunity to wish you a happy birthday.
Thank you, brother. And I want to take the same opportunity to wish you a happy birthday as well. Y'all didn't know we were birthday twins.
Absolutely.
We are.
Pisces all day long.
Pisces all day long.
Every day of the week. Absolutely. Bobby, look, I'm looking forward to the show, man. You're going to, for your hot topic, you're going to talk about the conflict in Iran. As most people know on this platform that you and I both are Army veterans. And so, hey, we don't know everything, but we know enough to bring it to the folks. And also your Civics 101 lesson, you're going to talk about the War Powers Act of 1973, because I know a lot of people are asking the question, are we truly at war? What are we doing? Congress didn't do this. Only Congress can declare war. So I know you're going to break that thing down for the folks, Bobby. So without further ado, brother, I am looking forward to it. It's all yours.
Hey, thank you. So we're going to start off, as you said, with the War Powers Resolution of 1973. So I think we need to start there before we get into the whole dynamics about the war in Iran. So let's read what that resolution actually says. I try to take copious notes before I come on so I can have a reference to go to.
Yes,
so the War Powers Resolution of 1973, it's a federal law intended to check the president's power to commit U.S. armed forces to armed conflict without congressional approval. So it requires the president to notify Congress within 48 hours of deploying troops and mandates their withdrawal within 60 to 90 days unless Congress declares war or authorizes an extension. A little bit of background on why this law was enacted. So the War Powers Act of 1973 was enacted over the veto of President Nixon. So this was Congress overrode his objection to limited presidential authority to commit U.S. forces to armed conflict without congressional approval, a move that was spurred over the frustrations of Vietnam, the Vietnam War, and secret bombings and other activities that took place. So let's just understand that's the background to this to begin with. So we've had, as you all know, other presidents that have come along and have challenged this authority, but listen to the rhetoric that you hear now, which is why we're bringing this up. So if you notice, or if you haven't noticed, I want to bring up something that our current Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, has stated about this particular war resolution. So he's very concerned, according to him, that it's a quote unquote frightening prospect passing a war resolution stripping the current felon in the White House of his authority to complete a military operation in Iran. So let's understand this now. A lot of this stuff that goes on, this was President Obama, the reaction could be completely the opposite. Let's make sure we understand that from the get-go. But let's deal with what we're dealing with right now. So Johnson says, and this is an article I took from CNN actually. He said, I think the idea that we would move a War Powers Act right now I mean, it would be forced onto the floor, but the idea that we would take the ability of our commander in chief, the president, take his authority away to right now to finish this job is a frightening prospect to me. The man is completely sold out to this administration. He is completely feckless, weak. But this is what he's saying. So I want you to understand that the dichotomy we're dealing with here.
Okay.
And this is something that stood out to me. So on Monday, the current felon in the White House said that the big wave of operation is yet to come. So when asked how long the war will last, I'm going to emphasize that word. When asked how long the war will last, he says he doesn't want to see it go on too long, but he said he thought it would be 4 weeks and we're a little ahead of schedule. So if you are not at war, why wouldn't you correct the reporter from saying that we're at war? So if you are at war, right, then you should have gotten the authorization of Congress. You should have brought it forth to Congress first. This is what this guy does, man.
Yep.
He doesn't follow the Constitution. He doesn't care about order. He just wants to do his own thing. So again, getting back to what we're dealing with right now. So when you go back to Mike Johnson, he's saying, well, he thinks the president was acting well within his authority. When asked about what he thinks about at any point Congress would need to give congressional authorization. Quote, it's not a declaration of war. Once again, we're getting conflicting statements. We're getting conflicting messages that are sent to us as the people. It's not something the president was required because it's defensive in nature and in design and in necessity to come to Congress and get a vote first. And if they had briefed a larger group than the Gang of Eight, there's a real threat that very sensitive intelligence that we had, might have been leaked or something. So, we can't trust our allies on this is basically what he's saying from leaking this information public. Now, do you recall any time in history where we've had a conflict like this where we were so worried about the distrust of others from leaking information out to the public? You think maybe that has been eroded from how this current felon in the White House has participated since he's been back in the Oval Office? You think that may have had some contribution to that if you're worried about information being leaked, that you can't trust information when being shared up front because they can't trust you. That's why they can't trust anything that you're saying, which is why you may have that kind of discomfort about our allies and keeping this a secret. So let's continue. He says, this is why the commander in chief of our armed forces has the latitude that any commander in chief, any president always has, because they have they have a set of information that is sensitive, timely, and urgent, and they have to be able to act upon it. They did that. So, it says presidents as commander in chief have the authority to conduct certain strategic military operations of their own, which they do, and have broad authority to act unilaterally in the absence of formal declaration of war. So the last time we formally declared war was what? It was World War II. Now, this is how this can be vetoed because the question now becomes, what is Congress going to do about it? If he has violated the Constitution or the Wars Act, War Powers Resolution, if he's violated that, what are you going to do about it? So they're trying to hold a vote. The idea is to force a vote on the floor to limit him, right? So he has the power of the veto, the president, and I'm just saying that's the power of the office. They have the power to veto a bill and send it back to the original House of Congress with objections. That's a regular veto. So it goes back to where it started, which chamber it started. Congress can vote to reconsider it. The override vote must be a 2/3 majority's vote. So just understand that there is power in Congress to basically override the president for a veto. They do have that power, and which goes back to again in 1973 what we talked about with President Nixon. So the question becomes, if they have this vote on the floor, you will then know we being the public will know which lawmakers voted for it and which ones voted against it. That's the whole thing. They don't think it's going to pass because of who's currently in power right now. But the idea that you would at least know which lawmakers voted yay and which ones voted nay on
Exactly.
this particular resolution. So I want to give that background as to what we're dealing with and what that particular act means, because you're going to hear it a lot coming forward, defining what that actually means. And again, if a question is asked to you about us being quote unquote in war and you don't refute it, then what are we doing? What is it? because you're not denying the word war when you're asked specifically about it. You should have corrected the reporter at that point in time, but you didn't. So either we're in war or we're not, because that's going to be crucial. And we know what this leads to, which we'll talk about later as we get into discussion about the war in Iran. I use war in quotation marks because
Right.
they haven't defined it yet.
Yeah, and like you said, it's been since World War II that Congress has actually declared war, um, you know, for the United States. And I think that way back when, once the Supreme Court, I mean, I'm sorry, once the Congress, they they started giving war power, too much war power to the executive branch, and all of them has had way too much power. Congress has ceded that to the executive branch. Obama, but see, what they want to say is that all of these presidents, dating all the way back with with Clinton and Obama and Bush and all of that, that all of those presidents sent troops to war without declaring war. That is actually not the truth. Now, I have a little bit more research to do before I get way in the weeds of it, but it's different. It is different from what is happening right now, even though those presidents did not have, like Obama, which I probably know you're probably going to touch on it, but when they sent troops to in harm's way, they had a coalition of countries, and they also had the back end of NATO.
That's what I was going to say.
Okay, and I'm gonna let you kind of dwell because I know you've probably looked, especially being that this is your topic, you've probably looked a little bit more into it this week because we needed to, because what we're going to talk about, and I don't want to make too many mistakes, but I do know that that is a difference. That is a difference. That all you have, only thing Trump has right now, as far as another country, is Israel. And Benjamin Netanyahu has been wanting for somebody, some president to come
Mhm.
along and attack Iran, and he finally got the idiot president to
Mhm.
do it. And
Mhm.
so I don't consider that as a coalition. Bibi Netanyahu been trying to prove to the world that Iran is going to destroy the entire world forever, and it never happened. So,
Mhm.
but anyway, that's my little first 2 cents, Bobby.
No, you're right there on it, and you know this is a pattern,
It is.
not only with Israel itself, but definitely with when you get someone as corrupt as Bibi in office running the country, and you get someone equally corrupt as the current felon we have in the White House, this is what happens,
Yep.
right? These are the things that happen. But we've seen these attempts at regime change in the Middle East numerous times with American involvement, and it hasn't panned out. The same rhetoric keeps getting said over and over again about peace in the Middle East, right? We'd love to see it, but the same rhetoric keeps going out about regime change and this is going to be a new beginning, and it doesn't happen. And I'm gonna get into that a little later on too. But it doesn't happen the way that they say. Now, so just to kind of dovetail into the topic about Iran, let's pay attention to something, and we can't take our eyes off of this.
Okay.
The Clintons testified Thursday and Friday last week
Yep.
about the Epstein files.
Yep.
They wanted to do it publicly. They wanted everybody to see it live. Republicans didn't want to do that.
Nope.
So they took a deposition, right? Isn't it ironic that as soon first of all, you didn't get anything out of Hillary. Didn't get anything out of her, right?
I don't
To
think I
to
don't think she has anything, but
She
yeah.
didn't have anything, but again, it's just to embarrass the Clintons. But again, I think the Clintons were one step ahead of them on that.
Hmm.
And Hillary noted that all the questions that they asked me, and she wanted to make sure that video was released publicly. Republicans didn't ask anything about Epstein. They were talking about Pizzagate and UFOs.
Yep.
She wanted to make sure that was clear. So they're not, if these aren't serious people that's
Nope.
interested in getting to the bottom of this stuff going on with Epstein. They're clearly trying to protect the felon
Yep.
as well as others. And we as the public keep saying over and over again, this has nothing to do with party. Whoever is involved, it doesn't matter on which side of the aisle that it is, expose them and deal with them accordingly. Everybody's saying this, right? But except the Republicans that are currently in power, they're trying to clearly protect the felon in the White House. Clearly. So they're trying to dance around it. They're redacting names. By the way, I thought it was a Democratic hoax. If it's a Democratic hoax, then how come you have this person's name being redacted thousands of times, right? And then you get on social media and some people want the Obamas to be in there so bad.
Yep.
They want the somehow to be connected to this. It's not happening. You want it to happen, but it's not happening. It's not factual. It's not true. But they have to always try to besmirch him
Yep.
and his wife, the forever first lady, Michelle Obama. They're always trying to basically denigrate them because they know how he's looked at, how the perception of him is with a successful tenure in office. That's a fact. I don't care what anybody else says. It's a successful tenure in office for his two terms in office. That's just a fact. So it's ironic that as soon as former President Bill Clinton starts revealing a little bit more about what he knows between Epstein and the felon, right? Suddenly, the very next day, we bomb Iran.
Yep.
And if you listen to the propaganda that is being thrown out there to us for us to consume, we were suddenly there was an imminent threat. Keep in mind, I'm gonna go to this right now. There was a deal already in place from 2016. It didn't cost any American soldiers' lives. It was already agreed upon to under President Obama.
And
And
as you
sure,
go there, because I know exactly where
hmm
you're about to go,
hmm
but I don't want it to be out of context after
go
you
ahead.
finish this. What you're saying right now, and that is that also keep in mind, like you're saying, the deposition, but also keep
hmm
in mind this man had just made a State of the Union address.
Yep.
And I believe I read somewhere today that only about 3 minutes or so of the speech was spent talking about Iran. So you had a whole so you when you look at the deposition, when you look at the State of the Union and Iran, I mean, and you look at what they're talking about, it's very, very, very they're unserious, brother.
hmm Unserious people. Unserious
Very
people.
unserious.
And we're gonna get into this hypocrisy about all of this, right? So and I'm gonna circle back to all of that.
Okay, cool.
So in 2015, the Iran nuclear deal, which was called the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action,
Mhm.
it was an agreement by President Obama where from President Obama where Iran agreed to curb its nuclear program, reducing enriched uranium stockpiles and centrifuges in exchange for relief from sanctions, international sanctions that were placed upon them, right? So it implemented strict long-term monitoring by the IAEA to ensure a peaceful program. And by all measures, for what we've heard, Iran was complying. And in the words of President Obama, he said the agreement was not built on trust, it's built on verification. Those verification provisions appeared to have been one of the final sticking points in the negotiations. But the Iranians agreed to allow inspection of Iranian military sites, quote, something the country's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, had long vowed to oppose. But such inspections are not the surprise snap inspections had hoped for. Some had hoped for. So this particular deal was signed on in agreement by not only the United States under President Obama, but the UK, France, Germany, China,
Yep.
Russia, the EU, and Iran. And then he comes in and 2 years later he rips it up. Oh, it was a terrible deal. Blah, 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 blah. But by all accounts, nothing was going on. Iran was complying with the deal. So any enrichment that they've had since that period of time, it was your fault.
Yep.
If they were agreeing to a deal without any casualties coming from the American side with any soldiers, they were complying with the deal. If they have enriched uranium since then, it's because you ripped up the deal that they had. So they felt like, well, if we agree to a deal and you don't want to abide by it, then what's the point of us agreeing? There's only one country in the history of the world that has dropped a nuclear weapon on a sovereign nation, and that's us.
That's it.
And we continue, we don't want anyone else to have them, although we know others do.
Right.
But if you listen to the propaganda that's out there now, they were such an imminent threat. I'm just going by what they're saying. If they were such an imminent threat to have something close to send to us, which I don't believe, and the reason why I don't believe is because you said last year that you had obliterated
Yep.
those targets. You had obliterated their ability to produce a weapon of mass destruction, which is something else we'll get into. That sounds familiar too, right? But this is what you said. So you telling me really in less than a year, they had enough enriched uranium to build a nuclear bomb aimed at us. Missiles have always been aimed at us. Missiles aimed at us right now from any country you can name that doesn't like us, right? But
And
that's
from
the selling point.
space.
And from space.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's the selling point they're going to give us now as to there was an immediate threat. There wasn't, if it was such an immediate threat, right? You waited until the day after the Epstein files were a hot topic and President Bill Clinton had talked and told you what he knew. And then all of a sudden the next day, you want to throw that headline off the table by bombing Iran. And when you get further into it, you realize that before you can't name a time before where the United States and Israel did a joint military operation like that. You might have NATO, helping with something, but you didn't have just the United States and Israel alone doing this. And there's a history behind that. And what Netanyahu is doing ever since he's been back running the country, and he's deeply unpopular there, is he's taking advantage of everything. If you go back to when President Biden was in office, when the whole bombings in Gaza started, right? And yes, we know that Hamas, make sure we understand Hamas and the people of Palestine are two different things. But
Exactly.
when Hamas attacked the citizens of Israel, right? Sucker punch. Ever since then, and this is where we got into the whole issue of people saying they weren't going to vote, based on an administration that supports genocide, as they were saying, and not realizing, and I have to say this with all clarity for people to understand, that the money that is appropriated to Israel, if we're sticking specifically to them, that is voted on by Congress annually. The budget has already been approved, and you have to send over, just based on how budgets work, what is appropriated, you have to send. But people misconstrue if you see $30 billion going over there, thinking we're cutting a $30 billion check and just saying, hey, do what you do. That is actually in the form of weapons that we build here
Yep.
to send over there. So American contractors are the ones that's really making the money
Yes,
from
sir.
sending weapons over there. That's what people don't understand. So when you get into the whole minutia of all of that, people just think it's like we're writing a blank check into what they do. But ever since then, this is my contention, that whole attack, ever since then, ever since Israel was hit on October 7th, ever since then, everything's been coordinated between Bibi and the fella.
Yes, sir.
This war could have ended a while ago. It could have ended when President Biden was in office. There was absolutely no intention of ending the war until um, the felon was back in office. No intention. That war hasn't ended, by the way. It still hasn't ended. And so all the bombings, all of the extra stuff that was done to the Palestinians, all of the starvation and attacking supply lines and so forth, that was all coordinated intentionally to make the Biden administration look bad and so that he can get back in office. That's my contention, and I'm standing by that. And it's the same thing with Russia and Ukraine. Same thing. Continuing going, and that war is not over. So all the things that he promised would be done on day one, which we knew was a lie to begin with, none of that stuff is coming to fruition. But before I get too far off in the weeds
Yeah.
and we get into more of this, I want to get your thoughts.
Yeah, no problem. Like you said, you stand by this, and let me tell you something. As long as you're standing by that, you'll never have to sit down. I promise you that. So you're standing by the right thing. But also, and I'm going to let you continue to, brother, you cooking, and I'm going to let you cook. Because let me see, because we still got to, well, I guess you're kind of gradually kind of moving into the conflict, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay.
Oh
All
yeah.
right.
I'm
All
in it.
right. Okay.
Oh,
Oh,
I'm in it.
you're in it. All right. All right. Well, I'm going to announce it just to make sure, just
I
so the chapters
appreciate
and
you.
everything will be right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to announce it as part of my moderation duties.
Yes, sir.
But before I do, I will say this, and that is that another thing we need to keep in mind, because in your cooking, I want for people to look at some things that either I'm saying, I don't, Bobby might hit this or you might not, but just in case, I'll hit it. And that is that we are also talking about, don't forget, people, when we're talking about Bibi Netanyahu and Donald Trump, we are talking about two leaders, and I use that term so loosely, but we're
Uh-huh.
talking about two leaders who needs to stay in office, or they are both going to
Toast.
jail.
That's right.
So just, and look, and it's hard. It is difficult for people to want to get rid of the principal leader of a country during wartime. And so these guys just doing, so just, I'm just going to say that as you talk, I want for the listeners to keep in mind the status of Bibi Netanyahu, very, very low approval rating in Israel. And then we have our regime and the head of our regime in Donald John Trump. So just think about that, people, as Bobby continue to cook. So Bobby, continue to cook, brother, on your hot topic of the conflict in Iran.
Okay. So I'm gonna piggyback off of something you just said
Okay.
because there's no irony in this, right? We've been calling this, you and I both been calling this well in advance, right? It's not ironic that we have them trying to push more stringent voter ID laws, okay? That they're trying to do all this redistricting, that they're trying
Mid
to
census, by the way, mid census trying to do all
mid-census,
this, but keep
correct,
going.
correct, mid-census. There's no irony involved in that this stuff is all occurring before midterms with seizing voter rolls, okay? Redistricting, seizing voter rolls. You've got also the more stringent voter ID laws that are coming into place. And so you're doing all this because of what you just said. You do it before midterms. So, and starting a war, you do all this before midterms so that midterms don't happen. So all of this stuff is quote unquote suspended. Oh, we're at war. Remember what I just said before about whether or not we're at war or not. And then when you hear your speaker saying, well, we're not really at war, but I guarantee you that'll be used down the road to justify trying to suspend midterms because he's trying, as you say, you use the term regime. That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to stay in office because he knows if he loses midterms, he is toast. He's going to get impeached and he will be put on trial. And every last person in this administration will be put on trial. So expect the cheating. The cheating has already started,
Oh, good
but the
God, yes.
plan is laid out right in front of us.
Hmm.
That's exactly what he's doing. So, one of the things that I want to look back on with this whole issue with Iran is let's look at what has happened previously.
Okay.
And you'll see the pattern. And I know you know where I'm going with
Yes,
this.
sir.
So the first one, if you have to actually go back, I'm gonna pull it up right here. You actually have to go back to the 1970s. So when I say that, you're talking about what happened in Lebanon. The Lebanon War in 1982, which is called the second Israeli invasion of Lebanon. So there was a conflict in 1978, which preceded that. So this was another Israeli-led conflict, which Israel attacked Lebanon after an attempted assassination of Shlomo Argov, who was Israel's UK ambassador at the time. So Israel accused the PLO, which is the Palestinian Liberation Organization,
Hmm.
of this attempted assassination. This was the second invasion of Lebanon by Israel. There's a pattern to this that I want everybody to just follow. This was the second invasion following the 1978 Lebanon conflict. So the Israelis sought to end Palestinian attacks from Lebanon, destroy the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO, in the country, and install a pro-Israel Maronite Christian government. So from February to April of 85, the Israeli military undertook a phased withdrawal to its South Lebanon security zone. This is after all this fighting has been going on. And the Israeli occupation saw the emergence of Hezbollah. Okay, this is what feeds into Hezbollah. This is an Iranian-backed Shia Islamist group. And for those that don't know, believers of Islam, you have the Shiites and the Sunnis.
Yep.
They fight. They have long had long conflicts amongst each other regarding their particular faith. So I won't get into that. So that's one example. Gaddafi in Libya, right? So we know there's one thing that keeps continue to be misunderstood is that the people will say, "Well, the Americans killed Gaddafi." No, we didn't. Gaddafi was not killed by an American fighting force. He was killed by the National Transitional Council, which is the NTC. That was a rebel-backed fighting force that eventually killed Muammar Gaddafi. But in terms of his leadership of Libya, again, we know that he was killed, and he was killed by those rebel forces rather violently. And we saw some of the video of that. But just telling you that it is not the Americans who fired the shot who actually killed him. There's been some conflict about the means of travel where he was going in the convoy, that American drone strikes had something to do with him being caught. That part I won't dispute. That could easily have happened, but as far as actually killing him, that was not American forces who did it. So we know what happened with Lebanon. I mean, sorry, with Libya. The next thing, there's a lot of regional implications in the Middle East due to him being gone. Okay, I'm going somewhere with this. And I've often talked to people about the Arab Spring, which people don't take the time to read and understand where that revolution actually started to remove Gaddafi. And if you go back, if you remember, the whole thing about Benghazi was that he sent his military there basically to kill any protesters about his leadership and about him being in office. So again, I'm going somewhere with this. Then there was Iraq with Saddam Hussein, right? And remember, during that time, you had Vice President Dick Cheney that said that the Iraqis will welcome us as liberators, right? Oh, it's going to be great. You know, they're going to have their own elections of different leaders, and this will all because of the Americans, and things will be great for them. So we may have peace. We may have 40 years of peace. By the way,
Yep.
which is what they said in Lebanon. I
Hmm.
forgot to mention that. That's the same thing they said would happen up in Lebanon. All right. So then now you look at the situation and what you're hearing, and I just named you three countries right there in the Middle East, right in that same area. We know about Hamas being in Palestine. You just heard about Hezbollah being in Lebanon. And right now, Bibi is taking full advantage of this to try to destroy those terrorist groups, just try to completely destroy them. And that's what he's doing. That's his own agenda that he's implementing, and we're being dragged right into it. So if you look at it, they're saying now they're going to give you all of this propaganda about Iran being a sponsor of terror, which they are. Nobody's denying that, which they are. And they're going to justify what we're doing, our actions, by saying that they were an imminent threat to us. We've heard this before. We heard the same thing about Iraq having weapons of mass destruction, and that turned out to be a lie. We had thousands of American troops that were killed based on a lie in Iraq and Afghanistan. And here we are now, you're hearing the same propaganda come back around again about Iran, right? We've always had issues with Iran, obviously, since the Islamic revolution back in 1979. We've always had these issues with Iran. But this thought process of we're going to kill the leaders and then they're going to be gone and everything is just going to be great. All these countries now will be more democratic, and be more of an asset for us. And it just hasn't happened. It just has not happened. Okay. Now, the dichotomy is that over people don't realize over time is that Israel has been our main contact source for communication on particular threats and plots to the United States. They have been. They have been an ally in that regard. But right now, what you're seeing, as I said before, you got Netanyahu um, basically doing joint operations with the United States. And as a result, you will have American casualties because the first thing they were able to start speaking was, we had no casualty. That's what they said the first day. Then you find out we've had six, and those troops have been returned home. And it's my understanding, I don't think the fellow in the White House was there to meet their graves. I mean, I'm sorry, not their graves, their caskets
The
when they came
caskets.
back, from overseas. So we're gonna this is something, and he's trying to say he doesn't think it's gonna last any more than 3 or 4 weeks. Well, the ramifications of that will be long standing, longer than three to 4 weeks. Okay, this is what we will deal with as American people. We don't know now what's going to be created, and the reason why I mention that is because usually what happens is another um, faction is created from our involvement in these conflicts. That's how Al Qaeda was born.
Yep.
And you've got the Taliban. These are all factions, groups that can't stand us, don't like us, and they're often formed because of conflicts like this. So people keep that in mind when you start to hear all this propaganda, because you're going to hear it over and over again. They were close to developing a weapon of mass destruction. Heard that before. Oh,
Yep.
well, they've been a state sponsor of terror. They were just getting ready to come get us. That's the propaganda you're going to hear now to excuse these actions. But it will be American soldiers. We don't know if boots are going to be on the ground yet, but oftentimes that's what happens when these
Yep.
conflicts arise, and we get into these quote unquote endless wars that don't turn out to these 40 years of peace. These grand assumptions is going to happen of greater diplomacy, so on and so forth. It just doesn't happen. So I want to get your thoughts on that before I move on to the next
Yes, sir.
next little topic to cook on
Yeah.
inside of this.
You're cooking, baby. You're cooking. But look, the Navy, the Air Force, now the Space Force, these guys are designed to easily be able to start wars. We know it's easy to start wars. Now, I'm not saying what
Right.
those three branches, do is easy or by any stretch of the imagination, but that is one of the things that they do. And we, as foot soldiers, you and I, as veterans of the Army, know that we appreciate what they do.
Mhm.
We appreciate what the Navy and the Air Force and now the Space Force do for us before our boots hit the ground. But however, we know that you cannot win a war. You cannot sustain whatever it is your mission um, was in the first place without boots on the ground. And if you are not interested in that, of sustaining, if you didn't go in there for freedom, you talk about freedom of the people. First of all, Donald Trump and no one, and not probably very few people in that administration couldn't care less about the women in Iran and all the stuff that you hear the mainstream media is talking
Mhm.
about. And you will see that, especially if they pull out of you do that damage, you let those forces, American forces, like I said, the Navy, the Air Force and Space Force or whatever, do that damage, and you pull out of there talking about, well, we're done. It, number one, it also proves that it was fully a distraction. It's
That's right.
Epstein files and all this other stuff.
Mhm.
You're still trying to get that Obama moment when he killed Osama bin Laden. It's all of that narcissistic 4-year-old stuff that this man does. But one of the things, Bobby, before I let you back on before you get back on the stove, is the um um you know the colonizers. You go and you create these lines across the world and say, this is your country. This is your country. You did it 54 times on the continent of Africa. You say stuff like Egypt is not even a part of Africa, it's part of the Middle East. But speaking of the Middle East, these colonizers, you go and you create this place called the Middle East. Well, I don't know how it became the Middle East when there's no Northeast, no East, no
Mm-hmm.
Southeast. It's the Middle East of what? Now I know what I can answer that question, but the
Mm-hmm.
Middle East of what? And almost all of the so you have this Middle East, and just about every country at some point or another was deemed a state sponsor of terror.
Mm-hmm.
What are you? These people aren't terrorizing anything. These people are defending themselves. You literally saying we're going to go in and attack Iran, and as soon as as soon as they fight back, we're going to say that they are the aggressors. So
Right.
this whole place called the Middle East, we know what the interest is there. Everybody
Mm-hmm.
who's listening to, because the people that listen
Real.
to this podcast, they're very smart people, and they know what the interest, what our interests
Mm-hmm.
therefore. They know
Mm-hmm.
why we are friends with Israel in the first place, and they know why everyone else in the so-called Middle East is enemies of Israel for the most part. So, so as you cook, brother, I just want for these people who are listening to the way that you are tying all this together, I just want for them to keep just a few factoids in mind, and let's not forget this, that, and this, because it all ties in to what you're saying.
Yeah, absolutely. And you stole my thunder with one part, which was simply about 9/11. That was
Oh,
Saudi nationals, right?
yes, Saudi
And so
nationals.
so when you look at the murder of Jamal Khashoggi by the Saudis and by the Saudi prince, notice we didn't do anything. And this all goes back to what you were hinting at and what we both know. This is about oil.
Yep.
And if y'all don't think so, I hope you went to the gas station recently. You'll see.
Well,
You'll see that's what it's about. So you'll have Iranians trying to, or just um, other enemies that we have in the area, with the Strait of Hormuz being cut off. From ships being able to go in and out of there. And I hope people realize, if you notice, you haven't got NATO to sign on any of this. You
and
have NATO.
they're
NATO
probably
has
not.
turned their backs. No, I take that back. Let me rephrase that. They didn't turn our backs on us.
Yeah,
We basically turned our backs on them,
exactly.
and so they're not agreeing to go in with this particular effort that's going on in the Middle East,
I'm
as you
surprised we
said.
even trying to be. I'm surprised we even still a part of NATO, with this guy. So,
Yeah.
like you said, I'm glad you said that, Bobby. That
Hmm.
NATO didn't turn their back on us. We turned our back on NATO. And if what is that coalition of countries he tried to
Uh,
replace, or something of peace, something of peace, a
it
coalition of peaceful.
board of peace,
Yeah,
whatever it
it's
is.
whatever it is. And at the end of the day, the thing about it is those are the countries that Iran straight up went after.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was those
Yeah.
countries that Trump said, okay, they're a part of this coalition of peace
Hmm.
thing or whatever it
Hmm.
is. And they've been, Iran said, okay, all right, well, let's see.
Yeah.
Yep,
Yeah. I mean, they're respond and I, the UAE, which is where a lot of Dubai is, oh gosh, I always said I wanted to go to Dubai before anything broke out over there.
yep, they went after them.
And yeah,
Yep.
so you've got people now trying to get out of.
So, what's your thought? I mean, you just have to sit and wait?
Lots of sitting and waiting, lots of uncertainty. We haven't heard anything. And so we're just waiting for the shoe to drop almost. We don't know when we can get out. We know that there's still no flights in or out. We were able to find cheaper hotel accommodations. And so that's where we are right now.
So, I understand you actually heard and saw the missiles that hit near the airport over the weekend. Talk to me about what that was like.
We did. I'm with a large group, so of course we're out touring and sightseeing. And as we were out sightseeing and actually leaving from somewhere, we looked up and saw a missile falling out of the sky. And of course, in that moment, we've never seen anything like that. We're all from Chicago, Illinois, where we don't see missiles in the sky. It's not the norm for us. So we don't know the process for that. We didn't know what to do, but to just get out from that area and try to shelter and get to shelter.
Yeah, did you know what was going on? Were you getting alerts on your phones? What did you do in those moments after you realized what was happening?
We were getting some alerts, but we did not have the full story. Throughout that day, it was so touch and go, kind of just hearing explosions, but asking the locals, hey, what's going on? Should we be afraid? Is this something that happens all the time? And they kind of just brushed it off. But like I said, being out of our element, we wanted to know more. We continued to research. And once we found out what was going on, our first thing we did was contact the U.S. Embassy for more information.
There. And I thought it was so silly to hear the current occupant of the White House try to say that, you're telling the Iranian people to stay indoors. You got bombs, going all around you. Well, gee, thanks. Thanks for the heads up, man. Like bombs are just gonna, know where to go. Like they have eyes to see. It's like,
Exactly.
it's
And
so
Bobby, you know
it's.
what? While you saying that, one other thing that I want people to
Mhm.
understand too, like I said, I just want to keep the people engaged on stuff that has happened so it makes so much more sense as you continue to give this lesson, which is that other presidents, if you think about it, even George Bush was not or is not a very bright man. We all know that, right?
Right.
But one thing that he did do, this man sold. He did everything he could to sell America
Yeah.
on the idea of going to war for a whole year. I mean, he led up to it. Yeah, these men, a lot of these presidents, not something that you heard out of Obama's mouth, but a lot
Mm-mm.
of these presidents say some of the most personal things of sending people's sons and daughters
Yep.
in harm's way to get killed. Even President Bush, W, said that
Mhm.
silly thing about Saddam Hussein when he said, "This man tried to kill my dad."
Yep.
You know what
Yep.
I'm saying? How
Yep.
do you get that person? How do you even say that out loud? How do you even say it out loud now? But what I'm saying is Trump didn't build up anything because here's the thing. Trump told those commanders that listen, okay, situate these ships, situate because it's easier to do this with boats and planes, okay,
Mhm.
than it is with boots.
Mhm.
Okay. Situate these ships, these planes, situate them to where if some stuff go down with Bill and Hillary, he knew all this stuff was coming up. He
Of
knew that the
course.
test of, that people
Yep.
was going to get deposed and
Yep.
everything else. And then, like I said, if you look at the State of the Union and all of that, this guy was not saying anything. He spent 3 minutes on Iran, but all of a sudden, boom, 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 boom. Okay. That
Mhm.
right there is what I want people to think about as you stand at this stove. Think about these things, and it just will all make sense to you. And all this propaganda, you can just kind of put your earplugs on or do whatever you got to do. But yeah, that's just another thing, man. It's just he didn't sell it. He didn't do any of that
Mhm.
stuff. All of a sudden, we're at war with the air quotes because yeah, I don't know what we are,
Mhm.
but yeah, that's just another tidbit, Bobby.
Well, and that was the bone of contention with President Bush over Iraq and Afghanistan. It was the same. It's the same
Same
thing.
stuff. These
You know.
guys are personal kids. They are
Yeah.
children.
Yeah. And if
They are children putting other people's children
that's right.
children in harm's way.
Notice you don't hear anything about Venezuela and fentanyl and bombing ship boats anymore.
No,
Suddenly that's gone off the table. It's all such a distraction from what's going on, and it's a three-letter word. We know Epstein is part of it. It's a three-letter word now that is what we're dealing with in reality with Iran, and it's oil, oil.
that's it.
And if you've been listening to this felon talk, he's always said something which you can't do, by the way, which is when we went into Iraq and Afghanistan, we got to get the oil, get the oil, right? You can't take natural resources from a sovereign nation just by going in and taking over. You can't do that, right? But right now,
It's against Geneva
he's already.
Conventions and everything.
Yep, you tried it. We tried it with Venezuela, and then you find out the oil companies are like, it's costing too much. It's the juice isn't worth the squeeze to go in there and try to set up refineries in Venezuela. So that ain't working. And what you're gonna try to do now with the with
And
Iran.
then, Bobby,
You can try to do the
also,
same thing.
you're not going to set up refineries, and these
Nope.
companies, these billion-dollar
Nope.
companies, are not going to go in there
They're not
and
going over
steal
there
these people resources without having what? Boots on the ground.
on the ground.
Army
Yeah.
and Marine soldiers
Yes.
on the ground is the only way, because if you go start trying to build refineries, then people going to pick you off. You in their
Exactly.
backyard. You in their house.
Exactly.
You think they're just going to sit around and just be like, oh, okay, well, y'all do whatever y'all got to do, Mr. Colonizer.
That's
No,
right.
it doesn't work that way. Them people are
Nope.
going to kill you.
Nope.
You know, and then the military, the Army and the Marine Corps just become missionaries for you.
That's right. That's essentially what they're trying to do. You know,
Pretty much.
they're just having them do their dirty work, and so the mission isn't defined. I tell you what though. You should see a surge in military signups. I'm saying this rhetorically, right?
Yeah.
Sarcastically.
Yep,
You
I
should
know
see
exactly
a
where you're about to go.
surge in military signups from people that are MAGA or from these people that are in ICE. Won't you send those new recruits that you brought in with ICE? Send them over there, right? We'll see how quick they come back.
And also
Send
the
them over
white,
there.
don't forget about the white nationalism.
Oh, they're in
Because,
ICE.
you know, hey, well, yeah, okay. You
They're in
just put that
ICE.
as one and the same.
Yeah,
Okay.
you know, so you can, let's see how the numbers go up or whether they stay the same, in terms of signing up to do the dirty work in the
Or go
military
down, brother. Don't forget that category.
oh,
Or
oh,
go
go
down.
down, or people say I'm done, I'm retiring. Nope, I'm not re-upping.
Yep.
Let's see what happens there. As a lot of people talk on social media, they get out there and they bump their chest, and say what they're gonna say without any measure of thought. Let's see. Let's see what happens now in terms of signing up for our military. But this is the type of rhetoric that we've all heard before, which is really what I'm getting at. We've heard all this before. One time can be a coincidence, 2 or 3 times is a pattern, brother.
Yes, sir.
And so, what you have right now is the same rhetoric being spewed out there. And Bush had me juiced. I ain't gonna
Yep.
lie, Bush had me juiced
Yeah.
because of what
Like I said,
happened
he
with
sold it.
9/11.
He sold it. He sold
Yeah,
it.
he sold it. Yeah, he definitely sold it. But I had some real skepticism about the
Oh,
whole
yeah.
weapons of mass
Well, you know
destruction
we
thing.
always do.
We did, yeah, and
The ones in
if you
uniform look
notice,
like us. We're always
that's
skeptical,
right,
but
always
we're
skeptical.
patriotic, and it's just something that we're caught between.
That's right, and
Yeah.
that is why General Colin Powell, after being fed information to the UN to say, when I think he realized, like, y'all set me up.
Yep.
These are lies. He stepped down, and you never heard him a part of that administration ever again.
And they used him
sup-
to
They did.
to quell that skepticism
Absolutely.
that soldiers like who look like me and you, if it's coming from Colin Powell, we're like, you know what? Okay.
It must be.
It
It
must
must
be.
be good.
It must
Yep.
be. They
Yep.
used them.
They used them most definitely. So it's a shame what we're dealing with. We got an economy that is still struggling. Manufacturing hasn't grown here. The economy is on a downturn. All of these things are happening right in front of our face, and it's just amazing to me the capitulation from those that are in power, and to try to basically put the whole country in a headlock over the midterm elections from not happening because they can read the tea leaves, they see what's going on, and they know they're in trouble, and they know they don't have much time, so they're going to create as much chaos as they can as possible. They're not going to abide by the rules. They've never cared about the Constitution and what it says. So we know this is a rogue regime, as you have eloquently stated. It's a rogue regime. And no matter how many congressional hearings we have with these representatives of this administration, you can clearly see who they're trying to protect. The integrity, forget it. But they're going to mask it all by trying to be so patriotic in their speech, in what they say. But this is a rogue administration. This is a rogue regime, as you eloquently stated the word regime.
Yes.
But this is something we as the American people, you have to be smart. You have to be educated on what's actually going on. Because if you just go by what comes out of their mouths, you're going to believe every lie that they say. And the worst part about it is that we have basically labeled anybody from the press, pretty much, as being non-credible, which is all part of authoritarian playbook. So those that are credible sources, credible journalists, credible media, they're all whitewashed into the same boat. And you stated a lot of times about the media. I know what you mean by that.
Yes,
But everybody now is being thrown into the same boat. So the public doesn't know what to believe.
exactly.
And as a result, they go on to social media, and we're talking, but
Yeah,
they'll go on to social media and they'll listen to uncredible people just speak and say things that they're uneducated about. We're not, we always try to back what we do and what we say, again, by going and taking some copious notes. So the the irony about all of this, as well, is that when you look at what has been stated from this particular administration, the whole idea about obliterating their nuclear program, then you have a Marco Rubio saying the opposite of what Hegseth is saying. Rubio was saying things like they were not enriching right now. Which is it, man? If, are they trying to build a nuclear weapon right now as we speak, or they're not? Are there missiles pointed at us that can reach us or not? We can't. I just simply cannot believe what comes out of the mouth of anything out of this administration, because we see the game plan of what they're doing and what they're trying to do behind it. But I'm at a loss of words at times. I see it, but I'm not gonna drive myself crazy,
yeah.
knowing what is being done and what's taking place.
Please don't. And it's not even. It honestly is not even worth it. But um, I guess my closing piece of this is that this is an opportunity for America to really show the world, to really show its marginalized people. We talk about on this platform all the time um how this we never let our listeners forget how this country was founded and what it was founded
Mhm,
on. We
mhm,
never let this listening audience forget the original sin of this country. This is an opportunity to Donald Trump has provided a perfect opportunity to begin the healing process of America in all of its sins of the past and how it has marginalized every single group in this country except rich white men. Notice I said rich white men. Rich. Because let me tell you something, brother white man, you've been catching it you've been catching it like everyone else has been catching it. Okay? You're nothing special. Donald Trump has shown you you're nothing special, but he just keep on making you believe that as long as you are white, you are better than the best. You are better than Barack Obama.
yep,
And you believe it. But this is an
yep,
opportunity for this country, for the so called Democrats, for the so called progressives of this country to show and prove and begin a process of holding this rich, nasty, dirty man
mhm,
accountable in front of God, country, and the world. It is an opportunity. This man has committed every single type of crime. He has committed political crimes, white collar crimes, and war crimes.
mhm,
It is a perfect opportunity to say, you know what? Him, all of his cronies, we're going to get them. And let me tell you something, Democrats, progressives, liberals, whatever you call yourself, this is what your base and so many other people who effed around and found out, that's what they're waiting on now. That's what the world is waiting on now. You and I know that it is often the case that when we as Americans go around this planet, go to other countries, people hate us. People spit on us. They yell at us. They hope that our plane crash on the way back home, all of that stuff. And it is simply because of the history of this country. And you have an opportunity right here to get rid of the scum. And if you let him off the hook, you've just shown everybody that the United States is what it is, and it's going to always be that way. Anyway, it's an opportunity. It's really an opportunity for that to happen, for the so-called, for, like I said, for the white liberals, progressive Democrats, whatever they want to call themselves. You don't give me this stuff about we're not in power, and all of this. People are sick of that. They're sick of hearing it.
Yeah.
Stop it. Stop it. You can do something. This man is committing crimes in broad daylight. Absolutely broad daylight. And what they always say, don't say you can't get those cronies and those grifters that surround him, because everything I've ever heard about crime, and I'm no lawyer, but everything I've ever heard about crime is usually the cover-up is worse than the crime. Bobby has said right here on this particular episode, he has exposed the cover-up. And usually it's worse than the crime.
What this type of behavior does too, it also spurs on, these are the ramifications of it. Taiwan needs to watch their back with China.
Yes, sir.
And this is just going to continue to encourage Russia to do what they're doing to Ukraine. So, and people don't realize, like, when they keep throwing at us about Iran being the biggest sponsor of terror, well, guess who supplies money to them also? China and Russia. Right. So you better recognize that this is not something that is just a one-on-one type of thing. Just us and Iran. No. The ramifications of this are much wider and much deeper than you realize. So this type of interruption, that's on his resume. That's on him. And I'm telling you, they don't last 3 or 4 weeks like he's acting like it's just going to be, because the world's going to view it as we're being the bully again. And what you do is you create more factions that are created, that we may not know the names of them now.
Yes, sir.
But they could try something later on, and then they take credit for it, and you're wondering, who are they? Most people didn't know who Al Qaeda was.
Nope.
You didn't know who the Taliban was. These are not. And by the way, I'm gonna say this last thing. The loss of someone like Khomeini, he's not a good leader. He's not a good person. Brutal dictator. Nobody's mourning him. So same thing. I've talked about this before. Same thing with Gaddafi. Same thing with Hussein. Any type of dictatorship, the dictator themselves, they get rich while their country suffers. There's usually famine. They nationalize the resources. This is all out of the same playbook. You're seeing the same things done here. You're seeing American citizens getting killed for protesting ICE. And so these are the same type of things that are duplicated and happen. And other people around the world say, well, hey, if they can do it, we can do it too. And who are the Americans to try to come in and tell us what to do? Look what they're doing. That's just an example. So I want to close out on that as give some people something to think about.
Absolutely. And one other little tidbit I thought about, well, something that made me think while you was a couple of things that you said just then, is that also not only the United States citizens, okay, but the world. You can only, we all know the story of the boy who cried wolf. You've been saying that these countries, your Chinas, your Venezuelas, and all these other countries are so terrible and sponsors of terrorism and all of this stuff. People are starting to say, are they though? Are they so bad? Is China so bad? Because you just keep saying it.
Right.
But when you are the ones who started everything. And the last thing I would say that sparked me when you was talking, made me think about something. And this is for right here for the Americans, for the people who are listening to this. If you think that these other countries like Iran and even Venezuela and some of these other countries, we know in this country, we have all of these militias, right? Running all over the place on the weekends, playing army or whatever. Now, I'm not saying they're not effective. There's a whole bunch of them, God only knows if some of them could come together, but they probably can't, how dangerous they really would be. But they have no reason to come together like that, because this country haven't seen war on the home front on this land since forever, right? Since the Civil War, basically, right? I mean, I know we had, Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, and all of that, but you know what I'm saying. And so, but what I'm telling you is that you think all these other places don't have militias as well? They have all of that stuff too. And so these oil companies and these rich men know, send your people over there if you want to and watch what happens. That's why I say you and I both know it's got to be boots on the ground, brother. It's got to be the Army. It's got to be the Marine Corps. It just ain't happening. You're not serious. You're totally unserious. And you're some kind of diabolical madman if you think that you can defeat a country without basically just creating so many war crimes that it wouldn't even be funny if you think you can totally do that to a country through the air and and on the sea. And so, and again, nothing against my airmen, Air Force buddies out there and my sailors or whatever, but you are people. If you think this is going to be over overnight, let me tell you something. Get ready for some blood to be shed, because once the boots get on the ground, that's exactly what's going to happen. It's got nothing to do with the competence of the United States Marine Corps, Army, or whatever. But at the end of the day, okay, there's a price to pay with fighting someone in their backyard or in their house or on their homeland. And that's just what it is.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
But absolutely, Bobby, hey, that's all I have, man. And whatever you got left, say it, brother, or, we can close it out. Great 2 topics, one civics lesson and 1 topic, man.
Sure. I just want to, again, let's pray for our troops.
Yes, sir.
For safe returns, because they're going to do what is asked to be done. If the mission is clear, that the mission has to be clear. Clear-eyed. So I don't know, and none of us know what the mission actually is at this point, because if you quote unquote obliterated their ability to create a nuclear weapon less than a year ago, how did they go from that to suddenly being an imminent threat? And the next question I wish journalists would ask, as I've said before, which is, well, why did you rip up the previous agreement if they were abiding by it? You don't think that had anything to do with it if they were enriching themselves to build another bomb? So it's and we haven't even mentioned North Korea in any of this either. So
Absolutely.
those are the powers that be. But I will close on that.
And Bobby,
sure.
I gotta say one other last thing, and that is just do not forget. This stuff is really for these listeners, man. Do not forget that the United States and England and a couple of more countries are not the only one that has copies of all that Epstein file stuff. Okay, so guess what? If Bibi Netanyahu, who knows when you have a corrupt president, whatever you want to call this man, Donald J. Trump, when you have that much corruption at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, well, I tell you what, just think about yourself. Think about if you had you just committing all kind of crimes against nature, against humanity, and everything else.
Right.
People can do whatever they want to do with you. So let's not forget that it looks like we are protecting and fighting and losing soldiers, losing troops already, maybe because of something that Netanyahu knows about all this stuff. I'm gonna just put it that way.
Yeah. And so we'll
see.
close it there.
Yes, sir.
Close it there. Want to tell everyone, Scouts, thank you all for listening, for your support. Again, to our fellow veterans, we love you and we support you. No matter what your mission may be. Yes, we absolutely support you, and we thank you for serving, all of you. But in the meantime, we will see you in the streets. Once again, thank you for listening to Local Lookout. We'll see you next time.
Peace, Bobby.
Peace.
Hey, family. If you like what you saw, visit our website at blackmansroundtable.com for more information or to check out more content. Until next time, we'll see you in them suites and them streets. Peace.
something educational for you.
Woke up to the sound of the struggle, echoes loud in the street. Generations of pain in the rhythm, blood and tears in the beat. From the corners to the courtrooms, we decipher the code. Every word that we speak is a chapter, every step is a road. They try to silence the story, rewrite the pages in gold. But the truth don't need no filter, the truth don't need no hope.
This is the anthem, the voice of the unheard. Standing tall in the fire, speaking life with each word. From the roots to the branches, we rise through the pain. Black man's round table, we're breaking the chain.
Microphone in my hand like a weapon, wisdom passed down through the ages. Every topic we tackle, every fight on these stages. They say we're too loud when we whisper, too proud when we kneel. But the power in our voices is the power that's real.
This is the anthem, the voice of the unheard. Standing tall in the fire, speaking life with each word. From the roots to the branches, we rise to the pain. Black man's round table, we're breaking the chain. This is the anthem, the voice of the unheard. Standing tall in the fire, speaking life with each word. From the roots to the branches, we rise through the pain. Black man's round table, we're breaking the chains.
Unapologetically black. We'll see you in them suites and them streets where we're flipping tables like Jesus.
We're breaking the chains.